Hey, Stefan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you're doing.
For sure. So my background is in direct response copy. So this would be kind of writing, marketing writing, doing scripts for things like infomercials, but also digital stuff. So if you've ever seen a video sales letter where you click on an ad and there's a video of a guy talking for like an hour, I would write scripts for people, doing that. And that's sort of where I first came into the world of digital marketing and entrepreneurship in 2012. The story behind that is actually that I met my now wife at a poker table in Las Vegas in 2011. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing in life. And my dad had just passed away from cancer, and I was kind of in this weird place. And then she came into the poker room and got seated at our table, which was kind of total luck because there's maybe 30 tables there. And I kind of made a joke to the table saying, "Oh, I hope she gets seated at our table." And she did. And somebody asked her, "What do you do for a living?" She said, "I'm a writer." I wanted to talk to her. So I was like, "What kind of writer?" And she said, "I'm a copywriter." And I was like, "That is so interesting. That's so cool." And I pulled out my iPhone 1 or whatever and I was like, "What's a copywriter?" Because I had no idea. And then, little did I know that within 6 months I'd be a copywriter, and then I'd go on to have sold at this point, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stuff through my writing and my words. So yeah, it's kind of the background on what I'm best known for. Beyond that, I teach and train a lot. So copywriting, email marketing, mindset oriented things, a lot of the stuff with entrepreneurship, because I've done a bunch of other stuff in that time period as well.
Okay, so how did you go from not knowing what copywriting was to where you are now? What did that process look like, your education and all of that?
For sure. So yeah, at first I thought it was interesting, and I've always liked to write and always had that kind of creative side, and I'd write short stories as a kid and things like that. So I always kind of loved writing, but I didn't really realize you could make a good living from it, unless you happen to be like Stephen King or Michael Crichton or somebody like that. So I just thought it was gonna be a hobby and like a passion, but never like a vocation. And so right after I met my wife Laura at this poker table, I went to South Florida to take a job doing like outside sales for like a big company, and then she came to visit for a few weeks afterwards and came for a weekend. It was like the end of the weekend, and I was like, "Oh, I don't really want you to leave." She was like, "I don't want to leave either." So then she didn't. We had her car shipped down from New York, and she moved in. So, but I'm still doing this outside sales job, and overall, it's a pretty good job. Like they give you a car, they pay for gas. I think I was making maybe 40,000 a year, which for some guy in his early to mid 20s was pretty decent. And there was lots of kind of growth like opportunity and things like that. However, I just would come home after spending like 12 hours out in the Florida sun, driving around, sweating, going to all these locations, and I made like $200 in that day. And then Laura would be like in her underwear drinking a beer at her laptop, and she made like $1,200. And I was kind of like, well, what's going on? I'm like, I want to do what you're doing. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah. So I really was like, "Do you think I could be a copywriter?" And she was like, "Yeah, I think so." And so I wrote a sales letter. So a long kind of letter selling my services. I posted it on this website called Warrior Forum, which was popular at the time. I charged $149 per sales letter. And I woke up the next day and I had $298 in my PayPal account. And that was like the total, mind blowing moment of, oh my gosh, people will pay me to write and I can make a living. And as soon as that happened, it just created like a monster where I was like I quit my job like 3 months after that, and just was obsessed with getting clients and then doing a good job for them. And yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, pretty much. A few little
So
ups
cool.
and downs.
So cool. So talk to us, what's emotional response marketing?
Yeah, for sure. So this is something I've been playing with, and it's cool. I did a talk at Shanda Sumter, one of her events, which is where you first saw me speaking as well. And I did this thing about email marketing, but I titled it Trust, Love, and Profit, because the idea is that really it's not about being so transactional. If you can just build trust with your subscribers and your list, and then over time they start to really love you, then it's easier to profit from that through selling them things. But also you create these long tail relationships where you work with them for life. It's not like these one-off transactional things, but it's long-term relational kind of marketing. And what's funny is, as I was going to Shanda's event, I already done my presentation, so I don't even use the term emotional response marketing in it. But as I was driving, I was talking, I had a driver who picked me up from the airport, and I'm talking and I'm kind of like, yeah, it's sort of like emotional response marketing. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to use that. And I told the driver, I'm like, man, like I'll send you a royalty check one day if I monetize that. But the way I look at it is really like direct response marketing is all about getting somebody to take an external action. So you write something and you're like, click the link or put in your credit card information or call this phone number or whatever. And direct response marketing. I look at emotion as something that's completely designed to elicit an internal reaction. It's like a feeling or an emotion. And so a lot of that times that may come through like confessional, really authentic writing or communicating or marketing where you're sharing stories and it's very story driven. And the response you're looking for is again, that internal emotional response or that connection, which again creates trust and love between you and your audience. And ultimately, yeah, that leads to a lot of money. And it also makes it really easy to do. But if you're mostly doing emotional response marketing, and then when you do something that's direct response, it has even more of an impact because instead of trying to sell them on taking external actions all the time, you're just created this whole dopamine or emotional hit with your tribe that then like when you do ask them to take an action, they're more likely to do it.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. So I think in a lot of email, like, if I have like for my email list and most of the time I'm telling a story. Like one of my subject line I used was, last night I punched my inferiority complex in the face, and basically was talking about how I was at this event and there's a bunch of really high level people and how I was getting ready for it was a 3-day event and I'm in the hotel room and I'm shaving. And as I'm shaving, I've been feeling really nervous because I'm like, oh, do I belong or not? And having all these sorts of self-doubts and feelings. But the crazy thing is as I'm shaving and getting ready for the event, I realized I have one hand around my neck as I'm shaving and I'm literally like holding my neck, like kind of not like squeezing like I'm going to kill myself, but even the fact that subconsciously I'm sort of doing this and like choking myself is crazy. And then I was like, but then that was amazing because I started laughing because I'm like, what is going on? Like I'm that nervous that I'm subconsciously choking myself before I go meet people. And then I kind of realized like that, what's the worst that can happen is that if I go there and I'm going to make such an idiot of myself. People are going to all be really mean to me and say mean things. Like that's not going to happen. People don't act that way. Right. And then I'm like, and the plus I'm like, man, it's cool that I'm nervous. Instead of trying to fight it and keep telling myself not to be nervous, let me just embrace that. That means I'm doing something new and something big. And let me really just own being nervous. And so so this is like a whole story I share, but it got such a good response from people because it's not like at the end, and by the way, buy my course, How to Not Be Nervous, right? Like, it's like, I'm not selling them anything. It's just sharing in that connection you make. And then people just respond so well to that. And again, then later on, if I, in a few weeks or a month or whatever, I am selling something, it just increases it so much. To give one more example, my partner for my copywriting mastermind I run, my partner's name is Justin Goff. And for his list, which is an email list of 900 people, well, now it's more, but at the time, we're doing, he does the same thing. It's all storytelling, vulnerability, things like that. And rarely ever sells anything to his list. And then when he did to promote our first live event, which was in Austin in September, not only did we sell like 140 tickets to the event at like $2,000 per ticket, but then at the event we got 30 plus people to enroll into our mastermind at an average of $22,500 per person. Then we had a bunch of people say they wanted to sponsor us. We had someone else pay us $200,000 for this like thing. So we ended up making like $1.6 million off. His list was 900 people, and our Facebook group we have at the time was like 1,000 people.
When you shared this at that event, my mind was just blown. I was like, off of a list of 900 people. That's crazy.
I know, yeah, cool. It is. It's super cool, but it's true. And if you look at Justin's like open rates for his email list, or now my open rates as well, it's like absurd. Like he's like an 80% plus open rate on his emails, and he emails every day. And then I have probably like a 55 to 60%, but I'm not quite as strict with what a lot of my lists as he is. I have that problem of like, I want to help everybody. So like, he's very like, you have to apply and he just won't. Like a girl who works for me, who is like, does my PowerPoint presentations, does all the design and everything. And she applied and like wrote it, and he like didn't let her on. And I had to like talk to him like, hey dude, like, what are you doing? And he's very strict. So that's why his open rates are so high. But
I think that's a key thing that like you have to actually apply to get on his list.
Yeah.
And so does he have any other lists, or is that the only one?
That's the only one is that one. And I mean, he's managed other lists in the past and he sold products and things like that, but that's his main list. But no, it's cool. I totally stole it from him when I just recently kind of launched my list and totally stole it from him, and it's made a huge difference. But I've done the same thing. There's people who you're like, hey, why are you applying? What do what's your background? And they're like, I write copy. And you're like, okay, great. Like, well, tell me more about you. And they're like, want to be on lists. And I'm like, nah, like I'm not going to do it. So I won't let those people on my list. There's nothing against them. It kind of hurts me to not let them on, but it's like, if I'm going to give so much to you, you have to give a little bit back to me. And so that goes back to sort of relational kind of marketing versus really transactional marketing, I guess.
I thought that was such an interesting concept to have people actually apply to be on the list and then just keep it that much smaller. And when you shared the open rates and what you were able to do, I was just like, that's crazy. So what are the emails? Do you have any examples of emails that he would send to fill up that event?
Yeah. So a lot of what we would do, so most of the time, again, this is storytelling about, my mom, like for him, his relationship with his mother is really, wasn't great. And, a lot of us have that same thing, but so, it's things like confessional stories about how he has hangups because of the way he was raised. But then when it comes time to promote or fill up the event, it would be something like a dinner that we all went to. So he came into town and we went and had dinner with a big company in our mastermind called V-Shred and Scalp Nation. So these guys are they're probably, I think they're doing about 120 million in revenue this year. And it's health training, fitness training, coaching. They have a cool kind of quiz, and then they sell supplements as well. So one of them was a story about how we went to dinner and they were talking about all the cool things that they're doing to grow their business, and how we were like, man, we got to get them to speak at our event. And, we had to ask them if they would speak or not. And they were we didn't think they'd say yes. But then, Nick, who's the CEO, was like, all right, sure, I'll do it. And we're like, man, that's crazy. So if you can, you want to hear what Nick has to say and how they've gone from living out of like a car in LA to running a $120 million company that's growing like really fast, then, you got to get a ticket. We're not going to sell a ton of them, but here's the link. If you want to buy one, buy one. So it's still like storytelling first, and then the call to action to people at the very end of it. And so that was really the kind of emails that we ran.
Is that like the general framework that you would do? So just story, and then you would lead into some kind of pitch, or?
Yeah, typically, yes. And that's a good question. But yeah, I think, you can do sort of what I call like the raw, naked, like kind of promotional email where you're just sort of like, hey, like I'm selling something. Do you want to buy it? And, there's times where that can be effective or work. Maybe you're doing like a holiday sale or a Black Friday sale and you sell, physical products. But I think generally, especially for people who, if there's a spokesperson behind the brand or they are the spokesperson, and I think it's better to just continuously do storytelling and then, transition into sort of your pitch or your ask at the end of it. I still think that's better, because if you can entertain people and provide value, then I think even then they're more likely to want to reciprocate by then giving you something in return by clicking on the link or wanting to buy a ticket or anything. So yeah, generally still kind of storytelling first and then asking second.
Do you have a ratio that you follow of how many just like value add emails versus sales emails that you would send?
Yeah, it's a cool question too. It really depends on what you're trying to do. So what we did, for example, with our event in Austin is, right, Justin will go like months without selling anything. And then, but once it was time to promote the event in Austin, it was like every single email for 2 weeks was just about the event in Austin. But because it was still couched in like storytelling, and like there was still stories and interesting things and lessons in there, like nobody really cared or minded. Like if you look at the open rates are still just as good, like the 7th email in of just pitching them, as they were on the first one. It's not like people are like, oh, this is going to be another pitch, so I'm not going to, want to do this and read it anymore. They still opened it because they're still entertained and get value from it. So, if you're selling like a, consumer products, let's say, if you're like an e-com brand selling like physical products, then I would probably look at doing something like maybe 5, I would email every day. So over the course of a week and 7 emails, it would probably like 5 value emails for every 2 promotional emails, or maybe 4 for every 3. But you do have to test that, because it's totally fine to sell every day too, if you're, being, providing value as well, I guess.
Got it. What are some tips for creating subject lines that get people to actually open that email?
Cool. Yeah, great question as well. So curiosity like wins all of the time. I love, things that, like I sent an email to my list today, and most of the people on my list like know me, like not like personally, like we've hung out in person, but they, they're there's a high level of awareness about me for my list, obviously. And so I know my wife is Laura. So my subject line today is Laura and I's big fight, which is not only grammatically incorrect on purpose, but that's okay. Because I want to kind of get them annoyed, kind of catch their attention. But just the idea of like everyone, if you look on Facebook or you see me and Laura, like we're so, like we just are lovey-dovey and we really are best friends and all that. So just that subject line of Laura and I's big fight, I can already tell you it's going to be like one of my best open rates of like any email I've sent. Like, so why, again, curiosity. You want people to, all you want to do for subject line is to make people curious or make them feel like they have to open it and read your email. And then the first line of your email really is just to get them to keep reading the rest of your email. And so curiosity wins a lot. There's one from a guy, I used an example of my presentation that you saw from my friend Dan Ferrari. That was something like, a story from the time my brother killed a guy or something like that. And, it's like, kind of sounds horrific, but you're like, you have to open that because you're like, what, his brother killed somebody? And his brother ended up being in the military, it was about like Veterans Day or something. And it was like a well-written email, but really curiosity is the best choice as much as possible, but it does need to match, the subject line needs to match the message and the body copy of the email. So you can't just make something super random, like, I don't know, like I just bought an ostrich or something. Like that's kind of an interesting subject line. But if your email then has nothing to do with an ostrich and you didn't buy an ostrich and you're just talking about how, you were waited a long time at Starbucks for your coffee and it made you mad, that's going to kind of annoy people because there's this disconnect. So you do want to have a logical connection between the subject line and the body copy. But yeah, curiosity is really king there.
Okay. For people who wouldn't really call themselves a writer, and this is something they struggle with, how can they learn how to be an effective storyteller and copywriter?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, first of all, practice does help. Like, so just practicing writing and reading other people's emails, looking at their stories. So subscribing to people's lists who they, who follow the similar strategy that they want to employ. So whether that's like my list or somebody else's, but that's a tiny little plug for my list. But but the point is like people. Wait,
hold on. Where can we subscribe to your list?
If you just go to my website, so stefangeorgi.com, there's an opt-in option to subscribe to my list there.
Cool. All right, done.
Thanks for that plug. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But that's the big thing. And then one thing I think is cool is again, practice really makes perfect. You just have to practice, and the more you write, the better you're going to get at it. One thing I like to do, and I also taught this in that presentation, but I do it myself, is I make like a spreadsheet what has like different like categories of stories I could tell. So like I could talk about recent discoveries in my life, things that I've discovered or realized. I'll talk about or another category or row, or I guess column would be things times I've failed, times I've succeeded, maybe big turning points in my life, all these different things. And then under each of those sort of categories in those columns, I'll just list out every story I can think of. And as you start doing it, it's really powerful. I think right now I have a couple hundred prompts on like an Excel spreadsheet that now, like anytime I feel like stuck or I don't know what to write about, I can just go to that Excel spreadsheet and see which one is resonating with me. And then, write about that. And then the one other funny thing though is I did that, but a lot of time, once you're doing that and you're writing every day, you just constantly are thinking about things that you can turn into emails. Like, so I actually am not even using a bunch of the stuff that's on the spreadsheet because I keep having good ideas every day for what I'm going to write about the next day. But it's nice to know if I ever wake up with a total mental block, like I don't have to try and be a genius when I'm just not in a mode of genius for that day. I can just go to my spreadsheet and pick something and start writing.
That's a huge takeaway. And I hope everyone opens up a spreadsheet and actually just brain dump a whole bunch of stuff, because that makes life so much easier. A lot of times people are like, what should I write about? Or what can I talk about? But if you have a spreadsheet that you can refer to, like that will make life so much easier. Do you have any books that you recommend?
As far as for writing copy go?
Yeah.
It's tough, honestly. There's a lot of them out there. It's just like everything's kind of piecemeal. A good one maybe for people is this something called like the Ultimate Desktop Copy Coach, which is it's based on this guy Clay Makepeace, and it was written by one of his proteges, Tony Flores. And it's a lot of it's that kind of old school direct response stuff, like where like physical sales letters that people would get in the mail. But it is a good read in that it really gives you a very good understanding of direct response copy, which again, even if you're doing emotional response, like you still want to know the fundamentals of direct response, so like a good headline or how to write, a good intro that catches people's attention, things like that. So, it may feel a little bit snake oily when you're reading it, but if you can kind of get past that and think about how you can apply it to yourself and your brand, I think that's probably a worthwhile read.
How can we write a good headline and a good intro that captures the attention?
Yeah, I think, again, really about curiosity. So for a headline, we want to talk about, there's really like a criteria of, I don't know, 7 things, which I may not remember all of them off the top of my head, but one thing is like specificity, being specific. So for an example, people who, I've seen clients who sell like, one of my clients in my copy mastermind has he sells golf clubs, and they're cool. So basically he gets these custom made golf clubs, and they're unique names. So instead of it being like a fairway wood, he has like the moon wood, and the moon wood is this cool technology, like hybrid thing. The Tiger, one of the Nike designers who did Tiger Woods clubs now designs these clubs and things like that. So if he's talking about it, you can say, hit a really far drive, right? Or you can be like, crush drives or 300 yards or more, like effortlessly, like the specificity of like 300 yards versus long drive, like that little thing makes a huge difference. And then on top of that, ideally a time frame to achieve like results if you're, for a headline specifically. And again, you want to be realistic, and we want to be, compliant. So you don't like, if you're doing a weight loss thing, you don't necessarily want to say lose like 30 pounds in 3 days, right? And like that's totally unbelievable and not true. And not only is like legally dubious, but you're going to just piss people off because they're not actually going to lose weight. But if you can generally provide a time frame of when something's happening. So for the golf analogy, if it's like start hitting, 300-yard drives consistently within 30 days guaranteed, right? Because then there's a 30-day window. So now people are kind of like, oh, wow, this is the time frame for me to achieve these results. Like that's exciting as well. Curiosity again. So if you can tell a story of, one-armed like golf pro uses new club technology to crush his drives 300 yards, plus, and here's how you can do the same thing starting in just 30 days. So now you've got some curiosity. If there's and the one-armed golfer is a famous headline from a copywriter. But the point is, if you can add in curiosity to it too. So the more you can layer into your headline, things like that, typically the better it's going to be.
Okay. So I have an email that I'm sending out, and I have 2 different subject lines that I'm thinking about, and I'm wondering which you think is better.
Okay.
So one would be how much I've actually invested in my personal development over the years. And then the other one is what I've invested $162,000 into over the past couple of years.
Second one.
Second one for sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder what should work better.
Yeah. You never know. We have to test. It's like there's always exceptions. So everything I say is true, is generally true, but you never know. Sometimes that's why we sometimes will test stuff. But I'd be really surprised, like really, really, really surprised if the second one didn't win because of the specificity and the 162,000 and the curiosity, because that's a lot of money, right? So for somebody kind of is like, yeah, I'm like, I can barely invest 5,000, but what's she investing 162,000 into? And it's like pretty much like an instant open.
Interesting. Okay, let me pause for a second. My computer's going to run out of battery, which never happens, but there's like something's going on with my computer.
Yeah, no problem.
Started at like 50% and now we're at 7. Like, what's happening?
That's funny. Yeah, mine's not plugged in right now, and I was like, but mine's doing okay, but I was like, I hope that doesn't happen. So,
yeah. I was like, this is risky, but have to hide in the closet to hide from the dog. This is what happens when you work from home.
Right. I know I'm working from this Airbnb right now, but it's actually it's not bad. Can you see the ocean? Because I've got the tiny little screen.
Yes.
So that's not the worst, right?
No, gorgeous. Gorgeous. Okay, so you have several different businesses. How do you decide which one you focus on and where you really put your attention?
Yeah, so the way I approach this, and it took me a long time to figure this out. I've definitely had multiple times throughout my career where I overextended myself. And what I realized though is like, when you do that, when you try and do a bunch of things, you end up being kind of mediocre at a bunch of things, or you can't be fully effective. You really have to focus on a couple of core things and make those your focus. And yet I do have several things. I own a a call center in Las Vegas with like 70 employees now, and I really think we'll be at 150 by the end of 2020, maybe 200. Sort of just a bunch of cool stuff's happening there. I own a small stake in a sports agency. I have the copywriting mastermind. I have my personal brand stuff I'm doing. I have some health brands that I'm involved, all this stuff, right? So yeah, how am I able to do that right now and actually feel like I have a pretty good amount of time, which I do, is I've really separated these things. And there's two things. One is that I separate a business to like if I'm like the leader of the business or I'm an investor in the business. So with my call center, even though it came out own health like company that I had and it was my internal team, could offer it to people from the outside. And it took a time to get here, but I realized like, okay, like I'm building a team, like a leadership team. So a CEO, a COO, making sure that they have like the standard operating procedures in place, making sure that there's a whole org chart and a hierarchy, making sure that we have a wiki and a training and hire all these things in place, and then letting them run that. And so then as much as I want to get involved, and I do sometimes, I don't. And I'm like, I'll do a biweekly leadership meeting. We'll do like a quarterly kind of bigger meeting to look at like goals and assess, each quarter, how it went, how the next quarter is going to go. But other than that, I typically spend like 2 hours a week on that call center, even though it's, a multi-million-dollar business and doubling every year and going through rapid growth. But the big thing there is really, thinking about like I'm the investor, not the leader. Because if I try to be both, if I start coming in there and trying to take responsibility away from the people who I've empowered, then they're not going to do as good of a job. Then people are going to start coming to me with their problems, which I don't want. And then suddenly it's going to bog down all of my time, and then I'm not going to do anything else.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest one for me is like, am I an investor or am I the leader of the business? Like my copywriting mastermind, I'm the leader. I run that with my partner, Justin, but that's my time. We do like, an hour. Well, we train for an hour every week on Zoom. We have a Facebook group where people can put in their sales copy and we give them feedback and critiques. Like it's very hands-on, it's active, but that's okay. I know that and I'm committed to it. And that's what I do there. And then the one other thing I would say is I do look for opportunities where there's a lot of leverage. So for example, I have a partner named Cody, and he has a company that does like health supplements, and he sells a lot of like turmeric, and he's been doing it for several years, and we're really good friends. And what I realized is like, I can just get him sales copy for like new products, whether that, is a new type of supplement for, weight loss or like blood pressure support or whatever it is. And if I just give him the copy, he has the infrastructure to where they'll do the design, the dev, the integrations, they'll manage the traffic, they handle fulfillment. His team handles like everything basically, but I'm still like a 50% partner in it. And that seems like I'm getting kind of like, it's an unfair deal for me, but the sales copy is so important because with good copy, you could sell a ton, and with bad copy, you don't sell anything. So Cody's okay with that arrangement. And then beyond that, I'm like, okay, well, I have all these copywriters in my copywriting mastermind. So I don't really have the time. I don't want to write all this copy. So like, I'll just hire these people, which then like they're thrilled because they're getting paid anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 to like write something. And so now like they're even happier to be in my mastermind. It gives them more practice, and I can just sort of look over stuff and then hand it off, and I don't even have to actually have written the copy. So then, that's something that can net me several $100,000 a month, but the actual amount of time I have to spend on it's pretty minimal. It's really just looking over stuff, making tweaks and changes, and coming up with ideas. So that's kind of a high leverage type thing. And so, really trying to be an investor. Well, I mean, you have your things that maybe you're the leader of, but for everything else, you have to look at you're the investor, and then also looking at things where, they're high leverage activities where for a small amount of effort, you can get an exponential return.
Whew. Genius. What would you say your superpower is?
Communication, I think, and especially, maybe empathetic communication, really like writing in a way where I understand people, and then I connect to them in a way that they feel understood. And so I think that can be done through, again, sales copy, but also just talking from a stage or writing emails or whatever. I think that's really, it's kind of funny because especially as a man, I think, right, we're more guarded about our emotions and we're sensitive and things like that. And I think growing up, it kind of like bothered me sometimes that I was sort of like an empath. But then now as I've gotten older, this is how it normally goes, right? But you realize, oh wow, that's like a super great gift I have that a lot of other people don't have, especially other men. So yes, it's totally funny how that changes as you get older and realize all these things you didn't like about yourself are actually these incredible strengths that you have and that you can, use to do kind of cool things.
I like it. What are some mistakes or failures or lessons learned that you've had over the past couple of years?
Yeah. So I could do hours on this, but I'll keep it.
Some of the big ones.
Yeah. Pulling out a scroll here. And no, yeah, I think one would be, of course, the overextending yourself, trying to do too many things, like, and trying to do too many things at one time. That's just a huge, huge challenge or issue. I think not stress testing your ideas. Like I really try now to, when I have ideas or things, like really to go to people that I trust and that I value and ask, okay, like where are the blind spots? What am I missing? Why should I not do this? And really asking those questions. Cause I think a challenge that a lot of us have who are entrepreneurial is we have an idea. We're like, this is the best idea ever. And they're like, let's just do it right now. And you just jump right in. And, it's kind of like you start swimming out into the ocean and you're swimming for 3 months. And then you realize, oh crap, like, I don't know where I'm going. Like there's no, maybe there'll be an island somewhere up here. Maybe a ship will come by. I don't know if I can turn around and get back to shore. And you kind of get yourself in this no man's land or no woman's land. And that's been an issue that I've run into in the past. So I really try to be more strategic and critical now, so I don't just jump into to give one quick example on this. I have a business, I have an agency, and one of the things we did was we had an affiliate network. So basically where, for people who don't know what that is, like you have different brands or companies and like sales pages up, so landing pages, and then other people come in and promote your products and help sell them, and you give them a commission. And so a network sort of sits in the middle. It connects the people who have products with the people who want to promote those products for a commission. And I created this whole vertically integrated model that I thought was really a genius thing. And it ended up costing me probably $1 million in the last year. And so thank God I'm able to afford that, but it still sucked.
Right.
And the reason why is because I just thought wow, it's in the middle. I just take a little piece of every transaction. But what you don't realize is okay, well, you're floating somebody over here and you're floating somebody on the other side. If this business goes under and suddenly you floated $200,000 for them, then how do you get it back? And do you want to sue people? I don't really want to go into a bunch of crazy lawsuits. I mean, if somebody really steals from me, I would, but there's just all these sort of downsides to running an affiliate network, but I didn't think about any of them. I just jumped right in and, full steam ahead. And so had I really talked to other people who owned affiliate networks, which I have since, most of them would have been it's a terrible business.
Don't do it, run.
Don't do it. Yeah, exactly. So really, I know it sounds so simple, but just really stress testing your ideas and with people you trust. And that doesn't mean you have to listen to everybody, right? Because we do, especially as entrepreneurs, again, we dream big and have big visions, and that's important. And you have people in your life who maybe you love, like family members or whoever, who just don't get it. So they're going to tell you no about stuff where they're wrong. They're like I remember before I went to South Florida and took that last job I ever had, I remember sitting at a table with my mom and my cousin. And again, this is pretty soon after my dad had passed away, but we're sitting there talking. And I remember being and I met Laura at that point, and I'm like, I don't know, I really think that I can make a living writing. I really think I could write, and people would pay me for that, and I could do that. And then they were both like, you're an idiot. Go take this job in Florida. What are you thinking? And I'm like, all right, yeah, you guys are right. And then ultimately I still ended up doing what I felt this calling for. And it's not my mom hates the story. She kind of denies it, but I remember it so vividly. But it's not her fault. It's just it's a whole different, they just don't understand. So yep. It's not you just, if your mom or dad or your sister says, don't do it, you don't do it, but you still at least get people's counter points of view and things like that, and really understand kind of the pros and cons of any kind of thing that you're going to dive into.
Definitely. I think it's hard to talk to people who aren't entrepreneurs about your ideas because they just don't get it.
They don't get it.
No, not at all. If I were to tell just some of my friends who aren't entrepreneurs, how much I've invested into my business or just some of the things like that, they'd be like, what? Are you crazy?
100%.
What does it mean to you to make an impact?
I think it's, for me, just changing people's lives. Well, that's so broad and generic sounding, I know, but I guess I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this. I love people coming to me and telling me that because of something I've shared, content or a lesson or a story, that is helping them to live a more effective and more fulfilling and richer life. And so really that's just it. So if I'm talking about stuff of entrepreneurship or mindset or whatever it is, and that means that somebody here's that, and take something that I'm sharing, and then they apply that to where maybe, yeah, they make more money, which then means that their family's more comfortable and their kids have a better, kind of childhood and things like that, then, that's amazing. Or maybe it's even just that they had this mental hang up that made them hate themselves. And then I've shared a story that for whatever reason, helped them to get over that hang up. And suddenly it's like they have a whole new outlook and view on life. That's just so rewarding and enriching and frankly kind of addictive too. When you hear people telling you that, it's like you just want to do more of that.
Yes. Cool. Where can we connect with you?
Yeah, best places would be my website, so stefangeorgi.com, and I'm on Facebook too. If you want to add me, I should be on Instagram, but not really right now. I do have a profile, but I'm just not active with it. So for now, really just Facebook or the website.
Cool.
And if you go to my website, get on my list though, for sure, because
for
that's
sure.
the best way to hear.
I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah. Cool.
Any last words of wisdom?
Hopefully I've instilled a lot of wisdom on this, but I think just, I guess the best piece of advice I give people now is like, for anything that you're doing, if you just focus on being like the absolute best and at whatever it is, the one thing is you do, and just like striving for excellence. And I think sometimes we get caught up in worrying about what's going to come from like the results, right? Instead of the process, but generally the process then dictates the results. And so, if you want like notoriety or fame or a bunch of money or whatever it is, like if you just are the best at something that's like a valuable skill or a valuable thing, and you do that and you're like one of the best in the world at that, then everything else comes. The money comes, like the attention comes, like everything else will come. And so, but if you never kind of fully master your craft, then it's never going to come. So it's like, it just makes sense to just focus on being the absolute best and really being excellent at the one thing that it is that you do better than everybody else.
I love it. Cool. Well, Stefan, thank you so much for being on the show and adding so much value to our audience. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me. This was really fun.